Mic check.
You're not fighting
Hopefully this is
You're
working.
fighting for a terrorist state. So
All right, it should be working.
All right. Let's go to super chats. Jennifer Smith writes in with a beautiful note.
All
I'd
right.
like to publicly apologize to Anna. I disliked her.
One viewer.
Recently, but I started
What's going on?
listening to her perspective, and now I can't live with it.
Okay.
Oh.
Wow.
Little nicotine pouch going on right here. Take this out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
Jennifer, you're beautifully open-minded. Open-minded and open-hearted.
All right. Let's see what we got going on. All right. Here we go. Whoa. All right. Look at this. No way. Kurt Cobain was murdered. I knew there was a lot of debate on this, actually. Okay, so if any of you guys remember, just recently, a few years ago, Martin Luther King, they ended up admitting that the CIA killed Martin Luther King. There was also evidence of, and this is a fact, by the way, that Jimi Hendrix was on an FBI/CIA intelligence watch list. And they had found wine in his lungs in a way that it wasn't mixed with vomit, because the story that he died, he choked on his own vomit and he passed away. I know that's graphic, but we're getting into it. That whole entire story doesn't add up, and somebody used the Freedom of Information Act, and they were able to attain paperwork that showed that Jimi Hendrix actually was on a watch list because he did an interview and he had said some positive stuff about the Black Panthers, believe it or not. And I guess he said he could empathize with their plight, essentially. Then he was also at the time the most popular Black person in the white community, like very popular amongst white people. For a Black person at that time period, very big cultural shift that was happening, and he was representative of that the Black man that succeeds in a white world. And as much as I don't play into racial politics, that is a fact that at the time he was eyed for that. And he also had mafia connections. His management was all mafia connections. Anyways, this wouldn't be the first time, we see what happened with Puff Daddy, with P. Diddy. And that was just the tip of the iceberg, and he got off easy. They ended up messing up that case so bad. Anyways, we'll keep going with this, all right? Okay. Right. Crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. Crazy. See, when you get mixed up into when you get mixed up in these crowds, you know, these people become like business associates. They become like family members almost, like a distant cousin or something, because you have so many different business connections, like in the drug game, that come as almost like a form of friendship. Like you're gonna have, especially if you're like really hooked, you're gonna have a whole fleet of different dealers that you go to, because if one of them's not available, then the other one's got to be available, and you got to have one for when it's a complex thing when you're in the, especially heroin and stuff like that. Like you can't go without that stuff. You have to have it. So there's a whole circle where these people all stay clicked up with each other, and you're in the midst of a lot of people that on a dime, or when you're not looking, they're going to try and take advantage of you in every single which way possible. And I've had stuff stolen time and time again. And I considered myself to be pretty on top of my stuff, and I didn't really even hang out with them when I used to use. And that whole entire thing, it's totally plausible that while even he was at his peak of fame and fortune, he still probably had plenty of shady people around on a regular basis to supply him the things that he needed. Damn. Damn. That's crazy. Damn. What? What? Wait. So they knew he got murdered, and then they stayed in there for several days after he got murdered, and he was in the greenhouse. Wow. That's hardcore. That is way, way different than I imagined it. He had so many people coming in and out of those doors. His house was just like a landing pad for the whole scene. That is insane. Wow. I don't understand how is this just coming out now? That there's nobody going like I heard gunshots or anything like that? Like what? I don't get it. Okay, here we go. Wow. I don't know. The guy says, I had done this before. The guy from the picture says that I had done this before. So if he had done this before, then wouldn't that mean that he totally could have done it again if you're that kind of person? He goes, oh yeah, I could see it in their eyes. And I know because I've done this before. You sound like you're trying to confess, but then put it on some other people. That's what it sounds like to me, that he just made this elaborate story up 23 years later because he knows he got. I mean, for all I know, psychology is a weird thing. He could have just made up this whole story to get it off his chest that Kurt was killed. I don't know. I don't know. You would think they would just give him a hot shot. Just give Kurt a hot shot. The dude shoots up. It's not hard to kill somebody like that. That's what I. That's exactly what I was saying. Okay, now it sounds realistic because that's exactly how I would kill him. If I was going to kill somebody that was an active IV drug user, it is absolutely the easiest thing to do is to just grab them, pin them down, hold them down, give them a shot. That's it. That's it. They're done. That's it. End of the story. End of the story. Uh, Hmm. Yeah, he probably doesn't believe. Why? Okay. So here's the thing, right? Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. I should have went over to mix. By the way, what if the autopsy in that entire situation is sketchy, which is what he's saying? The whole thing was a joke, and he's an expert in this sort of stuff. It's giving me the Charlie Kirk sort of thing right now, and I can't help but wonder: is there some sort of Jewish mafia thing going on there? Um, you know, he did turn down a $9 million gig. That might have just been one of the things. I don't know. Maybe, a lot of the times with this money thing, a lot of artists are worth more dead than alive. I don't know. All I know is that there's definitely something there. No, I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm not. Sorry about that. I should have had that on the video of him talking. But let me tell you guys something. As somebody that used to use a lot, 1.5 in a single shot is pretty high, but it's not that high. It's totally doable, and I've done that amount before and survived. So it depends on the quality of the product. So that's why I think that there's a good chance Kurt would have been alive if he had a high tolerance And you know he had as much money as you could imagine. Here. Wow. This is like, talk about some like typical hardcore drug addict behavior right there. They're like, fuck, man, really? Um, what do you? He's not going to get into motive at all, which I really wish he would. Um, that's just absolutely crazy, absolutely nuts, nuts. Anyways, we might as well listen to the last few minutes of this, huh? They won't even. Are they not going to go into motive? I really hope they go into motive, man. Wow. So he walked in, right? Sorry, I'm not doing very good with this. Really not doing good with this. You're just missing him talking anyways, but I'm sorry. So he walks in, sees Kurt dead after hearing the gunshots, and for 30 years doesn't tell a soul that the most famous suicide, maybe of all time, was not a suicide. What? With his history of drug abuse and history of suicide attempts, you would really think. I mean, it really was. And then now we got a botched the autopsy was botched as well. I mean, that's the oddest part about the whole thing, which leads me to go, hey, maybe these guys got hired to do something. I don't know. Maybe they got put in a situation where they had to do it. I don't know. What? Why? Why? It doesn't make sense. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. Mm-mm. Nope. 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 I'm not buying it. All right, we're done. We're done with this. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This guy right here sticking his neck out and saying the right thing for the right reason. And if I was Jewish, I would be denouncing this from the rooftop to try and maintain distance. Just not just morality, but just maintain distance between my group and my religion and the actions of this government, which are two separate entities, okay? I'm trying to get a better green screen angle right here. One without the green screen, I mean. Yeah, just absolutely tragic. Tragic what's happening right now. Okay, can we talk about Albert Einstein hated Zionism and did not support Israel? Okay? Just a little reminder to you guys. He compared it being a Nazi. Mm. There it is. That's a crux. That's the crux of their entire narrative that they want you to buy, that they need you to understand and absorb and be brainwashed with. Okay? You cannot criticize this group. We don't even understand how much things are being manipulated right in front of us. For example, the Charlie Kirk murder, obvious cover up. Epstein list, cover up. Russiagate, whatever. So many things. We're being lied to constantly. Who is the writer of history books? None other than the victor. The history is his story. And who is the story? It's by the winners of World War II. That was the last major international battle that brought the power blocks that are about to shift once again. So once again, the crux of all of this global battle that's brewing right now is all power blocks that were primarily formed after World War II. And that same narrative is being used as propaganda to shield them from judgment. If you judge us for doing what we're doing in Gaza, you must be like Adolf Hitler, obviously, right? And I'm glad to see, I mean, it's very obvious, but still, to hear, somebody put it this way from a Jewish background is refreshing for me because most are just Zionists. There it is. The history of the word anti-Semitism derives from the era of the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a term that was used to pass judgment on anybody that criticized what the Bolsheviks were doing because that was primarily a Jewish group. And it shielded this entire group, which is basically a block of different families within the Jewish community, Ashkenazis primarily. And these groups use that as a means to propagandize people and shield themselves from responsibility. The Bolsheviks. Anti-Semitism is not really a thing. It's almost like conspiracy theorists. It's just a tactic. They use it as a shield for propaganda. Yeah. Thank you. Amen. 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 Pro-human, baby. Pro-human. All right. Okay. So, anyways, if you guys want to get a little background story here, Trump celebrating the release of the hostages was in Israel, and he talked about his number one donor, and that is none other than Miriam Adelson. Miriam Adelson, and he talks about how she came in multiple times, and you know what? I'm going to let him talk about it, but did you just hear the wildness of this? The biggest donor to the president of the United States cannot tell you where her loyalty is, yet she is the number one financial contributor to our president. One of the biggest reasons financially he was able to get in office is right there. And the second was Charlie Kirk, who spoke out against, you Nazi, you're so obsessed with Israel, as they make our Congress sign 22 denouncements of anti-Semitism. Just since Marjorie Taylor Greene's been in office, she's done it 22 times. 22 times. They're obsessed with us, okay? All right. A little bit. Look, we're going to stop the stream here. Oh my God. What? What? That's crazy. The same thing that he was talking shit about Marco Rubio, because he didn't like Marco Rubio. I'll tell you what. Trump's on some act right. Whatever the fuck he's got going on, I'll tell you what, excuse my language. Whatever is going on with Trump, he's on that act right program. He's on that act right program. He must be scared to die. That literally must be what it is. He must literally just be afraid to die. Like, genuinely afraid. Ah, he does. Look at that. Wait. Tell me he doesn't look. Actually, let's do this. Let's go over here. Sorry, I need to touch up something really quick. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, here we go. Look at this. Tell me that he does not look like he got fisted. Look at that face. Look at that. Let me zoom that in. Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. Oh, Trump definitely looks like he's getting fisted. Trump is for sure getting fisted. Wow. Not good. Not good, guys. Not good. All right. Anyways, let's keep going. This is crazy. And we're going to stop the stream here in just a second.
Talk about it at the end.
Broken promises from many other American presidents. You know that. They kept promising. I never understood it until I got there. There was a lot of pressure put on these presidents. It was put on me too, but I didn't yield to the pressure. But every president for decades said, we're going to do it. The difference is I kept my promise and officially recognized the capital of Israel and moved the American embassy to Jerusalem.
He's pointing at his donor. He's pointing at Miriam Adelson. Huh? I did it for your money.
That's absurd. How crazy is that? Oh yeah, you paid me, and so I gave you guys Jerusalem as for the embassy.
Isn't that right, Miriam?
Yeah.
Look at Miriam. She's back there. Stand up, Miriam. Stand up.
That's what Trump is doing right now. Listen, Trump is doing a power play right now, okay? And I don't think people realize this. This is what he's doing. He's going, hey, Miriam, listen, Miriam, I gave you Jerusalem. You guys need to hold this ceasefire. He's basically calling her out he's trying to do it. He's trying to be cheeky. He's trying to be like, hey, listen, you've given me all this money. He said explicitly just a little while ago that I will not let you guys take the West Bank. You cannot annex the West Bank, because that is what Miriam Adelson gave Donald Trump $100 million for, okay? Now he's actively pushing to keep the Epstein list from being released, mostly because I think it's just going to expose the entire blackmail operation that's happening and the fact that it's connected to another country. Yes, our politicians aren't just bought out by AIPAC. They're not just bribed and bought out by Miriam Adelson. No, they're under blackmail operations for pedophilic blackmail rings. Oh my God. They've got their tentacles in everything. Why are we not obsessed with that? Come on, guys. Oh, man, it makes me angry.
So this is the president of the United States of Israel describing how he does not want the world to know about his time on the island. Listen,
I hope that's what it is, Jimmy. I hope he's not just protecting Israel. He didn't even
I honestly, everybody could see it.
engage in that, because that's worse.
because that would be worse. It's for money. Here we go.
Miriam and Sheldon would come into the office. They'd call me. He'd call me. I think they had more trips to the White House than anybody else I can think of. Look at her sitting there so innocently. She's got $60 billion in the bank, $60 billion. And I think she's saying no more. And she loves Israel, but she loves it. And they would come in, and her husband was a very aggressive man, but I loved him. He was a very aggressive, very supportive of me. And he'd call up, can I come over and see you? I say, Sheldon, I'm the president of the United States. It doesn't work that way. He'd come in and would do. But they were very responsible for
He's a Mossad asset.
getting me thinking about Golan Heights, which is probably one of the greatest things to ever happen to Israel.
So there he is admitting he gave the Golan Heights to Israel because of his donors. That's who runs your foreign policy, ladies and gentlemen. Wealthy Jewish donors.
Miriam, stand up, please. She really is. I mean, she loves this country.
And by this country, he means Israel.
She loves this country. Her and her husband are so incredible. We miss him so dearly. But I actually asked her, I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once, I said, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say.
Whoa!
Wait,
Whoa! Wait a
he's
minute.
violating so many rules
So
set
first-
forth by the ADL.
First of all, that's anti-Semitic to say that someone has
Yeah,
loyalty and loves Israel more than their own country. That is
very
legit
anti-Semitic.
anti-Semitism as we understand it. But what I think with Donald Trump, you know how Trump has a sneaky way of giving compliments while letting the cat out of the bag at the same time and revealing who the real manipulators are? I think that's what he's doing there.
Yep.
I think,
Clearly.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can say he's crass and unsophisticated, but if you say he's stupid, that's only because you're stupid. 'Cause
Yep.
That's what that sounds like. And by the way,
Well, what does crass mean? It means you blurt out the truth like an asshole.
yeah, so
That's
there-
what it means.
he's saying his top donor, Miriam Adelson, loves Israel more than the United States. Now,
Wait, Jimmy, let me just point out, in that documentary about Bibi not a Jew, Bilbo not a Jew, she's disgusted by the Netanyahu's corruption. Miriam Adelson, you can see her being interviewed by authorities, and she is aghast at how corrupt the Netanyahus are. That bitch.
so this comes directly from the IHRA, which is the International Holocaust Remembrance Association, accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interest of their own nations. That is considered anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
And Glenn
What about
Greenwald,
Jonathan Pollard, the spy?
Glenn
wouldn't let
Greenwald,
go?
he points this out. One irony of Trump's strong insinuation today about Miriam Adelson, that she loves Israel more than the United States, is a statement that is prohibited and subject to punishment as anti-Semitism under the expanded IHRA hate speech rules that Trump forced American universities to adopt.
There it is.
Isn't
Boom.
that wild?
Yeah.
I get why she's like that. Why is Mike Johnson like that?
See, he gets to say that stuff. By the way, that same stuff right there, people are getting expelled, kicked out of colleges, and being told that they don't get to live the dream life that they were trying to build for themselves because of Trump supporting the IHRA new rules for hate speech. The irony, gosh, the irony. I just wanted to further reiterate that to you guys. Absurd.
Here is right. So here is from the IHRA, which is the International Holocaust Remembrance Association. This is the list of stuff they say is anti-Semitic. Contemporary examples of anti-Semitism in public life, the media, schools, and workplace, and the religious sphere could, taking into account the overall context, could include, but are not limited to, calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of a radical ideology or an extremist view of religion. So that means if you side with Palestinians, that is anti-Semitic. Even though
What about when they killed Yitzhak Rabin?
Palestinians are legit Semites. Making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews as such, or the power of Jews as collective, such as especially, but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or of Jews controlling the media. It's getting harder and harder to say that's anti-Semitic when a Zionist Jew just bought TikTok and 1/6 of all the media in the United States.
I know Barry Weiss is not that good of a journalist. that
It's
she would
cra-
put in charge
it's
of CBS.
cra-
I met her personally. I've spoken to her. Doesn't
The Jews, you know, like you can't mention the fact that they literally, his son Larry Ellison and his son in the last month have purchased like 1/6 of all the rest of legacy media, Paramount, CBS, everything under that. I think they're trying to get Discovery, Warner. I mean, it's crazy. It is absolutely nuts. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this.
It seemed like somebody who would be seems like a silly rich girl, and I'm being charitable to say that.
And obviously TikTok.
You can't say that a world Jewish conspiracy or Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other society institutions. Well, it certainly the Israel lobby controls our government.
Yeah,
They
they
brag-
literally
they brag that they win 96% of the elections. They brag about it. What do you so people are seeing through this, right? So that's why calling someone an anti-Semite doesn't have any sting anymore. People wear it as a badge of honor. Accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even for acts committed by non-Jews. Denying
That's weird. Because Hamas, you know.
Because what?
Because Hamas, you know, you can kill all the Palestinian kids because of Hamas, right?
They're
It's
Hamas,
it's
yeah.
War, right?
So
Jimmy?
when they say real or imagined wrongdoing, like all those videos coming out of Gaza,
real.
they were just the imagination of a cell phone. So, was it pretty safe to assume that it's illegal to accuse them of anything they are actually doing? Because nobody puts this much work into stopping a lie. That's never happened all through history.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
That's right. Oh, here's another one. Denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, for example, gas chambers, or intentionally of the genocide of the Jewish people. So you can't deny that they used gas chambers or that there was a genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of the National Socialist Germany and its supporters and accomplices during World War II. So you can't deny the Holocaust in any way, shape,
I
or
don't.
form.
But I should deny others, right?
But you can deny other Holocausts, like how they denied the Armenian genocide and how.
Okay, here. Let's just look at this language really quick here. I'm gonna read this out. Denying the fact. I'll put it back on mix. In fact, I'll put it on side. You guys could listen to me right now. I'm getting better at this, guys. Sorry. Denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, like for example, gas chambers. So the scope and mechanisms, we can't even argue about the validity of any of this sort of stuff. Yet these people, okay, so you can't deny any of that stuff.
How they're
Absolutely.
I mean, that's insane. You know, that actually makes me question the entire thing, to be honest with you. If we're not allowed to question it, something's being hidden. That question wouldn't be coming out if it was that unquestionable. There's obviously aspects of the narrative that aren't real. I'm sorry, I'm not being a Holocaust denier, but when they tell me that I can't question it, it reminds me of the vaccine. It reminds me of Charlie Kirk's murder. It reminds me of all of the things. And when there's something you can't question, you know that that's something that there's a reason they don't want you to question it. I'm sorry to say it, but there's just my alarm bells are off.
Do that.
how they're denying the genocide right now that they're committing against the Palestinians. That's okay. No
Genocide as defined by Jews,
That's
which
right.
is a definition I agree with.
That's right. And the next one is accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. They would never exaggerate. I mean, everything they're saying is lies and contradictory, but they would never exaggerate about the Holocaust. That's
I'm sure the early Zionists didn't have a plan to sacrifice any of their own people because they don't do that now.
accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide.
That's
than
crazy.
The interests of their own nation. That's what Trump just did.
I'm accusing Larry Ellison of that right now on your show, Jimmy.
Okay.
I mean, he clearly is doing that. He says it out loud.
He says they admit this. The reason why they had to
Lutnick
take
says it.
over TikTok was so they could control the narrative for Israel and Zionism.
Because that works.
Again, this is all backfiring. They're so bad at this PR thing. So
Can I just give a piece of advice? Try being more pushy about it.
yeah, try being more pushy. Applying double standards by requiring
Yeah, that's what
of
they
it a
need to do.
behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. So they're saying they're holding Israel to a higher. So you can't hold Israel to a higher standard.
Even though they're chosen, even though they're chosen people, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean at this point.
Hey,
You hold them to a chosen standard. No.
I don't hold a double standard, Kurt. I of course also oppose the terrible Canadian genocide as well, where those treacherous Canucks are wiping out American jobs for comedy writers on sitcoms.
I condemn America. So no, I'm not double standard. I've never voted or believed in democracy here.
And here's the final things that they say are anti-Semitism. Using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, like claims of Jews killing Jesus or blood libel, to characterize Israel or Israelis.
Well, they are blowing up them churches now, though. I mean, hey, the Jesus thing I can forgive because that was the whole plan, that
Yeah.
he dies. But this part where you're blowing up Christian churches, it's weird to hear none of the Christians, Zionists, talking about it. They only talk about, like, Uganda. But they don't mention the Orthodox Christians being blown the fuck up in Syria and Israel.
There isn't a GPS that could draw you a straighter line to who is actually guilty than these new regulations. If they were any less subtle, they could be a sketch on SNL, for F's sake.
I mean, that's really where we're
Makes
at.
me mad because
I mean, literally, we are like this. Oh man, that bothers me so much. It bothers me so much.
these
mean
are the
hold-
assholes telling you, yeah.
This one holding Jews collectively responsible for actions
I don't.
of the state of Israel.
Zionists say that
That's what they tell you you're doing every time you criticize Israel. It's the exact opposite.
Jews are all Zionists.
That's
They're
right.
the ones, Nazis and Zionists, say they're the same thing. Not me.
That's right. Guess who conflates Zionism with all Jewish people? Zionists and Nazis.
Guess who was in on it together? And you have a coin
That's
with a
right.
swastika and Zionist shit on the other side.
That's right.
Guess who collaborated?
Wow. So I'll be interested to see what happens to this segment. Gonna be interested to see what happens. Let's see if by the way, I'm not suicidal. I hope everybody in Israel knows that. I'm not suicidal. I'm very happy. I'm looking forward to the next 30 years of my life. My father lived an extra 33 years. I'm really looking forward to that. My dad was healthy all the way to the end.
That's unusual for a cop.
My dad, he didn't get. Of course, he had anger and rage, like of a guy who was.
You know the fear on Jimmy Dore's face there, legitimately, you could tell he's been actually threatened before, without a doubt. I mean, I'm not under a rock. Like, the reality is he has been threatened before. And some of those threats that he had received, that face right there was literally thinking about that. I mean, I'm sorry I'm going to go back over that again. I think that's really says a lot about where we're at as a country right now. That you would have to see this and you'd have to see all these voices say, I'm not suicidal.
Zionist shit on the other side.
That's right.
Guess who collaborated?
Wow. So I'll be interested to see what happens to this segment. Gonna be interested to see what happens. Let's see if by the way, I'm not suicidal. I hope everybody in Israel knows that. I'm not suicidal. I'm very happy. I'm looking forward to the next 30 years of my life. My father lived an extra 33 years. I'm really looking forward to that. My dad was healthy all the way to the end.
That's unusual for a cop.
I don't know. That, you know what? I'm sure it's something that kind of crosses your mind, but after he started talking about it, it was like he really started thinking. You know, the way he said, my dad lived another 33 years, was really healthy, and then all of a sudden you could see him kind of blink his eyes and go, no, seriously, like this is the kind of stuff that people die for. Our freedom of speech. We have a president of the United States trying to be clever and trying to say, hey, Miriam, I've given you what I want, what you wanted. Please don't kill me. Please don't have the state kill me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's the Epstein list. Something. Trump is not acting in his own. Anyways. Let's go to Tucker really quick. We'll watch a little bit of his stuff. Yeah, so here's Tower 7. Okay.
Alex Jones, ladies and gentlemen, really glad to have you back.
It's always great to be with you and your wonderful crew in Florida, but Maine is my favorite. This is truly a little slice of Mayberry.
Mildly demented Mayberry. Thank you.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna stop now. Let me see. We'll go.
Stalin, for total kills of attack, to really pass draconian speech restrictions.
Yeah.
And now, because everybody's been called white supremacist, because everybody, who stands up for traditional values has been called bad, a lot of them go, well, you know what? I do like Hitler then. And they don't have enough history or context.
Well, that's right.
So they don't understand, look.
Well, can you just pause on that? That is such a smart point. I just want to say, Hitler was a total piece of shit, actually, and destroyed Europe. And why would you ever be for Hitler? I don't really get it, but by the way, we should not have armed Stalin. We were not. That was totally evil.
If you had to say Stalin, for total kills of people, was worse than Hitler.
Of course, obviously, but bottom line, let's just start here. You don't arm Stalin, okay? Yes. Period. I mean, I don't care what the calculation is. I'm not sending money or weapons to Joseph Stalin.
Right.
And
genociding Christians.
And that's what Patton said. He wasn't pro-Hitler. He just said
exactly.
We should never have armed Stalin.
But just because you shouldn't have ever sent a single dollar to Stalin,
yeah,
doesn't mean that Hitler's good. Hitler was a total piece of shit, actually, in my opinion. And whatever he...
I'm sure Hitler wasn't great. I'm definitely sure he had plenty of issues. I've heard quite a bit.
He did. He destroyed Europe.
But I would be curious as to what from the history books is actually a lie. You look at Robert Maxwell as being one of the biggest publishers of textbooks in America, and their infiltration through everything from the media. Look at the lies about what's happening in Gaza right now. Imagine if you just had a textbook telling you what the Israelis and the mainstream media is that they've purchased, what they want, or the TikTok censorship. What would they want you to know about the history of what happened in Gaza? Imagine if there was a book written on it. Do you know how much of a different story we would have if we didn't have the on the ground, which they killed journalists? History is so manipulated, we have no idea. I'm sorry to say it, but if you could imagine a textbook being written about Gaza, and think about the way the mainstream media and and the censorship, if they can make their narrative and put the official stamp on it and go, this is a government approved text, what do you think that would say, being that we funded it? Okay, now put that together and think about World War II. I'm not having you draw any conclusions, okay? Just close your eyes, think about what the media wants us to know right now, what our government's approved message is as far as what's happening in Gaza, and then think about what we know is actually happening. Those two things, they're the polar opposite. Now, does that mean, like I said, Hitler was a great guy? Probably not. But maybe he wasn't nearly as bad as they'd like him to be made out to be.
He had a lot of help, but he did that. So I don't know why you can't. There's no like space in between. Why do you have to go right from we shouldn't have armed Stalin, which we should not have done, and it's shameful that we did that. Anyone who calls it the good war, a war where you're arming Stalin, is not a good war. It's a shameful war that you should repent of. But you don't have to go right to I love Hitler, right?
Well, that's the thing is you have competing totalitarian systems. You have the fascists, you have the communists.
Yeah, how about neither one? Like, what the fuck?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you really read what Hitler himself wrote, it was all about a struggle. And he said, if all the Germans died doing this and failed, they deserve to die. And
so I just hate that right there. I hate sacrificing your own people, sending boys to go die in the defense of Berlin. You're losing. Why are you sending boys to go die? Fuck you. That's sorry.
No, but it was you're actually learned though. So, and I don't mean the pop anti-Hitler stuff, but the real things. And so that's my issue is people are all black or white. You know, they're all very monochrome. And here's an example. Do you want a black widow or a brown recluse to be put in your bed at night?
Neither.
Yes,
but we don't have to. So that's the part that freaks me out. Why would we ever put ourselves in a position where it's arm Stalin, be close allies with Joseph Stalin, who murdered tens of millions of Christians?
Who's called Uncle Joe?
Yeah. Or be for Hitler? No. How about no and no? Like what? That's the worst and fakest choice in world history. Like you don't have to.
What do they not tell you about all the Bolsheviks? That they committed a Holocaust on Christians as Jews. They don't ever tell you about that, do they? Once again, history, his story, whoever he is the one that's in control. That narrative is just like the Federal Reserve. It's a secret group of people. One thing we know for sure is a major power block of that institution is Israel, the nation.
Participate in that.
Absolutely. So that's the issue is.
And so who's telling me I have to participate in that? 80 years later.
And then it gets worse. You have the ADL that keeps World War II going in our minds and now says white America is Hitler.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's basically
the people who liberated the camp in our little town, really little town, where we're sitting right now. There's a war memorial, and a bunch of guys from this little town died fighting Hitler, which, I'm against Hitler, okay, but like, to then call that country responsible for what Hitler did, I mean, it's too much. I can't deal with it.
Oh, I mean, I've had like the ADL and stuff calling me a Nazi years ago, and I just turn out and look at it. They know exactly what they're doing, and it's so cheap. And now they see what it's done. It's blown back on them, where now you've lied so much and demonized so many good people. Now a lot of people think, well, then Hitler must be great. Because if you're calling me Hitler and I'm not, well, then Hitler must be good because they're not educated. And I mean, I can tell you it's a long story, but my dad's dad was in North Africa and flew his 22 missions. And then once they took Italy, he volunteered for another 22 missions, B-17. And then they attacked their base. They got strafed and stuff. And he got a Purple Heart, so luckily couldn't captain. And then his group went up the next week and all got killed. And then finally he stopped volunteering. So they only made you do 22 missions. But he then, as an officer, got put in charge of food trains and, food supply. And he described to my dad, never really told me the stories about
man.
and how it really freaked him out. And then later going into Germany and just dead bodies just from disease and starvation. Dead bodies as far as you could see, blackbirds eating people's eyes out, just stuff out of total hell. And that was the reality he saw about World War II. Then my other grandfather was also the Army Air Corps happening. And then
we're going to get
God
into
will give them a message and a mission of what they should do. And I don't want it happening. And then God will give.
It's not the people you would expect. Have you ever noticed that?
Absolutely. I mean, most people get into media because they want to be movie stars. Most people become a preacher because they want to, because they want to be famous and have power. And then you'll find like just the most normal, unassuming person that has all this great knowledge.
Yes.
Because they already have all the power. They don't need power. And so it's just
they're connected to God's power. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's quite the quest because
I don't know if I
so many
like
people are
Alex Jones
lost,
anymore.
and really, it's an inside job. They've got to somehow open up the channel to God, and then they'll see everything that's happening, and then God will give them a message and a mission of what they should do. And I don't want to say all churches are bad, because there's a lot of good people in the churches regardless. It's just that the last 120 years, the Rockefeller Foundation, the ecumenical movement, and all of that has really moved into the churches. We see that with all the rainbow flags and all, the famous cathedrals in England now festooned with all the leftists, graffiti.
All right, here's the deal. If he doesn't talk about Christian Zionism right now, then I do not respect him. This is his time. This is what we've been wanting from him, is for him to denounce Zionism, denounce Israel. He's been so squishy. He's done some things, but it took so much pressure for people giving him so much pressure before he was willing to give him an inch in that way.
And garbage. I mean, it's been captured, is my point. But people can't get turned off by that and say, well, God's dead. No. Satan has occupied these so-called temples. But God isn't in the temple. God is inside us.
All right.
And it leads them it leads them to defend like murder and stuff.
While we're on theology, what do you think of Peter Thiel's whole Antichrist lecture?
Yeah, let's hear about it.
I haven't seen it. I have talked to him about it at great length. I think it's really interesting. I didn't really get to the punchline on that. So the question everyone, has is, okay, who's the Antichrist? I think maybe there's more than one. I don't know.
It's a system.
Right. So I would just say I'm not taking a pass on the question. I would, but I don't. This is so far out of my depth. I mean, I'm just sort of at the I'm for Jesus stage of things. But I'm glad that there's a conversation about it. I welcome all conversations about the transcendent because I think it's what matters.
Well, exactly, because I love the comedian Tim Dillon.
Okay.
Like, this guy's got all this cat.
Okay. Yeah, real quick. Peter Thiel is in the cutting edge military AI technology, companies like Palantir, which are used to survey and control the mass population. Well, not control, but potentially be turned into a mechanism for control by censorship of speech and a social credit score system. He's creating the infrastructure that is necessary for the number of the beast and the entire beast system to come into fruition. He's facilitating the operation of that. And his entire thesis is that any regulations on this is antithetical to the Christ-like. I'm paraphrasing, but this Christ-like mechanical, technical evolution that's happening right now, where we're essentially creating a new being. We are birthing a new species that will supersede us. It's inevitable, is what they all say, and that there's roughly a 20% statistical odd that it will end with the entire human population being wiped off of Earth. It won't be hard for them to do that because they don't run on the same ecosystem as us. They could essentially shield themselves and then just eliminate all humans. Spray poisons up in the air because they don't have to worry about getting poisoned. We're an organic species. We actually have a vessel that has to have certain physics. There has to be certain nutrients that we get in sunlight and all that. As long as they have an energy source, they're fine. They could just spray some chemical up in the air, and as far as they care, we could just be burnt and our ashes could be used to energize them. Or it's really crazy to think that with all this technology that they're designing, that they're willing to go forward knowing that the world's top experts say that there's a 1 in 5 chance that it ends the entire species. It's literally a game of roulette. It's actually worse statistical odds than a six shooter, which is normally 6 rounds. There's 5 rounds in that. And one of them guarantees the entire human species goes. Just like that. Oh my God. All right, let's hear what Alex Jones has to say about Tim Dillon.
Cashless control grid, or this, and then he wants to know about the Antichrist. Well, he grew up really Christian. People don't know. Peter Thiel, and then now he's wanting to have a debate about it. I don't think the Antichrist wants you to have a debate about the Antichrist.
I think that's probably right. And just in general, it's worth talking about and reminding ourselves and others that this is just like a small piece of what's real. We're just seeing a tiny fraction of reality. Like the spiritual world, that realm is as real as, the table we're sitting at, and people lose sight of that. I lose sight of that.
Exactly. So we should be having, not just Peter Thiel, everybody, Donald Trump, you and I, we should be discussing Revelation, what's described is really happening now.
Yeah.
So we should be having, oh God, Peter Thiel's the Antichrist. He's talking about the Antichrist. What? Because some people are like, well, what's he doing talking about the Antichrist? Well, I think we should all be talking about it.
Well, because I think the temptation is to just ignore the whole topic. I mean, that's the world that I grew up in, where it was just never discussed.
Devil doesn't exist. It was just
100%. People's sex lives were a frequent topic of conversation. Everyone's
okay. All right. So here's a question. All right, you ready? Ready for my theory? I'm sure I'm at the first one. And what if, in this community, they're all understand that the very first truly autonomous super intelligence to be created will be the Antichrist? Maybe that's what it is. Tell you what, that would make sense. That would actually make sense, because this obsession. And then you got people like Elon Musk walking around with a Baphomet costume. Grimes saying, oh, AI is about to take everybody's jobs, but, the human population is going to collapse, so it'll probably all balance out. What'd you just say, Grimes? Huh? All right, we'll listen to this, and then I'll show you what's up with Grimes, because that's crazy.
super liberal about that. Like, no one was embarrassed of anything except any question that transcended the material was just considered, like death was considered totally off limits, because it pointed to these obvious questions like what happens then. And so I really welcome that. I think all healthy societies face death.
Exactly.
Directly.
People go, oh, you're a Peter Thiel dick writer. No, you should be having a discussion about Antichrist. Why aren't you? And so what I haven't seen the presentation.
So people, I'm sorry, I missed a lot because
he did a 4-part.
The internet's demonic. Sorry, I know I work on the internet, but the whole thing makes me.
He has a 4-part series, but it was done at Stanford, I believe, and it had to be not filmed. So basically, you had people that had witnessed it. They went to one of his lectures, one of his 4 lectures, and they said some argue that he said Greta Thunberg. Let's see. Let's look. Let's just go right in for it. Let's see if anybody broke down what Peter Thiel has to say about this, because I'm going to capitalize Christ. I think that's important. All right, let's take a look and see what. I mean, it is weird, man. Okay, well, here's a little clip from that section, but let's go over here.
All right, let's go ahead and get...
Up next, the Antichrist.
Up next, the Antichrist. Let me let you set this one up. I mean, I'll give you the bare bones. Let's put this up on the screen from the Washington Post. So, Peter Thiel, we all know and love, he gave this series of 4 private lectures, like 2 hours each. you had to agree that they were off the record and not to record, blah, blah, blah. Well, they got leaked. The audio got leaked to the Washington Post, so they wrote up this piece. They say inside billionaire Peter Thiel's private lectures, warnings of the Antichrist and U.S. destruction. Tech billionaire, they write, Peter Thiel recently warned that Swedish activist Greta Thunberg and critics of technology, or AI, are, quote, legionnaires of the Antichrist. In private lectures.
Oh, listen, that would make... Have you ever heard of the Mennonites or the Amish? The Amish and the Mennonites. That would be a couple different groups. They live a very rudimentary, naturalistic, plotting the earth, farming, living the most basic, healthy, regular human life that you could possibly live. That's how they live every day. Just farm to fork and chicken eggs in their coop, and they live like that. They don't have cars. They still use metal horse and buggies, the Amish. These groups believe the exact opposite, like the polar opposite of Peter Thiel, who, by the way, this guy, absolute sketch fest. But he says that critics of the same thing that they say will likely, without regulation, cause the end of the earth. And he's trying to bring in the Trojan horse and say, hey, listen, any of you guys try and stop this whole Trojan horse from coming in? You're the Antichrist, not me. Not me. Of course. Of course, bro. Of course, man. I believe you. Totally not sketched out by you at all, bro. You're right.
On Christianity that connected government oversight of Silicon Valley to an apocalyptic future. In the 4 roughly 2-hour lectures, which began last month, Thiel laid out his religious views to a sold-out audience told to keep the contents off the record, according to an event listing. He argued those who propose limits on technology development not only hinder business, but also threaten to usher in the destruction of the U.S. in an era of global totalitarian rule, according to the recordings. Now, for a guy who, helped found Palantir and is invested in this whole world, very convenient that he sees any sort of infringements on technological development as helping to usher in the Antichrist. And there's also, there's a lot that's really noteworthy about this too. The fact that he, it's explicitly religious and Christian in a Silicon Valley setting where that hasn't always been the association.
Okay, all right. Here's the problem, okay? At the crux of Zionism is a religious belief in the Greater Israel Project, right? That includes the capture of the temple to rebuild their temple and sacrifice their red heifers and basically have their Messiah return, which would be the Christian Antichrist. So this whole idea that a Christian should be on the side of Zionists who are ushering their Messiah, who is the Antichrist, it would say that because it's biblical prophecy that I should support the devil, is how I look at it, okay? That's how I think of it. You want me to be honest with you? If you were a Christian Zionist, you are actively participating in the support of Lucifer. And people like Peter Thiel, up at the helm of cloaking the word of religion and using that as justification to wield global dictatorial, technological fascism in a level that we can't even imagine, the beast system. And he's saying if you fight this, kind of like if you don't bless Israel while they're committing genocide, then you are actively supporting the Antichrist. It's like flipping the truth on its head. Like the projection here is a maddening, absolutely maddening. Oh man, just crazy. I'm sorry, that just drives me, it just drives me nuts. I can't help it.
I know from listening to some of the other things that he said publicly, you sent me some of the lectures that he'd given or the talks that he'd given previously, that he also likes to connect it to, okay, well, even if you're not religious, like there's a secular concern about the end of the world. You can think about nuclear weapons, you could think about climate crisis, you could think about AI, but he believes that while AI development is dangerous, that the risks.
Hey, real quick, if you were viewing this right now, whether this is live or you're watching it later on, I invite you to comment and share this, please. That would mean so much to me. And you will get the very first merch that I ever make. I promise. You will get the very first shirt that I've ever made. I've got a couple really cool designs for fear porn. It's going to be really dope. You're going to really enjoy this. You're going to be grateful for the opportunity. And I'm going to make sure that you get, whether it's a t-shirt or a sticker, it'll probably be a t-shirt. But please do me a favor and do that. Okay? Comment. Comment. If you comment while I'm live still, I'll give you a shout out. I need a little bit of love, a little bit of support, and I just appreciate you here anyways. But yeah, like I said, very first merch, I will personally mail you the very first merch I get for free.
Of not developing AI are more dangerous and will lead you potentially down the path as legionnaires of the Antichrist to an era of global totalitarian rule. So a very convenient set of beliefs for him to hold.
Right. So Peter Thiel has started over the last year framing this in explicitly biblical Christian theological terms by focusing in on the catechon, which is from 2 Thessalonians. I'll get into that a little bit more. We can put F1 up on the screen. This is the Washington Post article on a sort of leaks from a lecture that Thiel gave in San Francisco, but he has been doing these lectures in multiple different places. And one of the interesting parts of this Post article, there's been a Wired article on some leaks that came out. You're seeing this drip into the media in recent months. He did this long interview with Ross Douthat. We're going to get into that as well. In fact, we actually already covered this too, because as you said at the top of the show, Crystal, anytime someone with the power that Peter Thiel has starts talking like this, you have to pay attention. So he's saying the same thing over and over again. Every time you see a new article or a new interview, he is making the same pitch over and over again. And he's doing it as there's this kind of Christian revival happening in Silicon Valley, like the vibe shift that's happening nationally. There's a real, not even an undercurrent anymore of that happening in Silicon Valley. You see it in people like Nicole Shanahan. You see it in an organization that Thiel is involved with that's bringing in a lot of powerful people in Silicon Valley. And you hear it a lot in the conversation about generative AI, large language models, and that sort of thing. So here's a pretty representative encapsulation of the Thiel argument. We can go ahead and roll F2, and then we'll do some more breakdowns.
I think it was Ivan Illich who said that in the time before Christ, there were many forerunners to Christ. In the time after Christ, there will be many forerunners of the Antichrist. So in some sense, it's a type. So Nero was a type of the Antichrist, or maybe Napoleon was a type of the Antichrist. And it's sort of it's someone who aspires for world domination, creation of this sort of one world state. In some ways, Alexander the Great was sort of a pre-Christ prototype of the Antichrist. It's sort of very parallel to Christ. They both die at 33. Alexander conquers the world. Christ saves it. So sort of a compare and contrast. So, but in some sense, the Antichrist as an idea is something that really comes into being in the world after Christ. And so there's there's a lot of things about it that are mysterious. In some ways, the Antichrist copies Christ. The Antichrist pretends to be greater than Christ, hyper-Christian, ultra-Christian, and then maybe only ultimately, deeply, deeply anti-Christian. You can think of it as a system,
Do you hear what he just said right now? Does that not encapsulate Donald Trump to you? Someone that poses to be super Christian, like playing off of religion, cloaking yourself in being holy and being a good Christian, and then using that, wielding that power of manipulation of spiritual energy to empower oneself. To hear Peter Thiel, of all people, say that, it's just like seeing the actions of Netanyahu and really essentially the Likud party, which is sadly very supported in Israel. But to cloak all the actions of this governmental entity under Judaism would give it the same exact parallel function as to what Christian Zionism is doing in America. All of this while independent contractors have been contracted through FOIAs, essentially, Freedom of Information Acts. You can get FARA financial transactions. And once again, the actual government of Israel is paying to geofence things like the Charlie Kirk Memorial so that people there are being fed, and churches all across America. They're being geofenced using satellites and cell phones so that these people get targeted with pro-Christian propaganda, essentially, right? It's like he's telling us who's the Antichrist. He literally just said it right now, in my opinion. He just said it right there.
Where maybe communism is a one world system. So it's maybe an ideology or a system. And then of course, you can also think of it as Newman did, where it's sort of the final dictator of the one world state, where it's still, you stress it more as a person. You can think of it as a type, a system, a person. How does a sort of world takeover actually happen? And it's kind of not a deus ex machina, but like a daemonium ex machina. It's like the Antichrist just gives these hypnotic speeches where nobody can remember a word, and then sort of just swindles people's souls out of them, and they submit to this totalitarian state or something like this. And I think if we were to speculate on how to solve that plot hole, we have an answer in the world after 1945, that people are, in 1900, early 20th century, people were not yet scared of apocalyptic weapons. They could not imagine, anything of the scale that we have by the second half of the 20th century. And so the Antichrist takes over by talking about Armageddon.
The Antichrist takes over by talking about Armageddon. Now, Ross Douthat, in his interview with Peter Thiel, which we covered earlier, picked up on what many of you are picking up on after hearing Peter Thiel say the Antichrist talks a lot about Armageddon while he's been on a year-long tour talking about Armageddon. Let's roll the next clip.
Wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to...
All right, we're going to go back really quick and listen to that all again one more time. Huh. Okay.
So here's a pretty representative encapsulation of the Thiel argument. We can go ahead. Control F2, and then we'll do some more breakdowns.
Okay.
It was Ivan Illich who said that in the time before Christ, there were many forerunners to Christ. In the time after Christ, there will be many forerunners of the Antichrist. So in some sense, it's a type. So Nero was a type of the Antichrist, or maybe Napoleon was a type of the Antichrist. And it's sort of a, it's someone who aspires for world domination, to create, creation of this sort of one world state. In some ways, Alexander the Great was sort of a pre-Christ prototype of the Antichrist. It's sort of very parallel to Christ. They both die at 33. Alexander conquers the world. Christ saves it. So sort of a compare and contrast. So, but in some sense, the Antichrist as an idea is something that really comes into being in the world after Christ. And so there's, and then there's a lot of things about it that are mysterious. In some ways, the Antichrist copies Christ. The Antichrist pretends to be greater than Christ, hyper-Christian, ultra-Christian, and then maybe only ultimately, deeply anti-Christian.
Okay, do you not see the parallels here and the irony? Just a few days ago, there was FARA documents that were unveiled through Freedom of Information Act that show that Israel is actively funding geofencing campaigns where they track the cell phone data of people around churches all across America, including the 277,000 that were at Charlie Kirk's memorial. So they're literally taking these people and satellite tracking their cell phone data so that they could feed them Zionist propaganda. Pretends to be ultra-Christian, but is deeply anti-Christian. If anybody has any idea what the Talmud says about Jesus, and when you talk to avid Christians that know the theology of the Talmud, they'll tell you that Jews do not like the Goyim. Now, this is a blanketed, generalized statement, obviously, but we're talking about Zionism and the factions therein. It's just ironic. Here it is, he's working with the likes of Alex Karp, who is an avid Zionist, Israeli, with Palantir.
You can think of it as a system. Where maybe communism is a one world system. So it can be an ideology or a system. And then of course, you can also think of it.
Okay, one more other thing too, really quick. I think about the fact that United Nations, the founding of it, which is at the same time as Israel's founding, the founding of the CIA, the Mossad, it's all in that same region of time. That they were all practicing occult rituals. They had designed the UN headquarters to actually resemble the Tower of Babel. Yes, from Babylon. There's a thing where I heard somebody say that it was the Bolsheviks and the Zionists that really control the earth, and it's like we're battle between the two of these different factions, but both of these factions at the end result of the collapse will leave one of those two factions in power. They just don't want you to know that they're both in cahoots while they burn everything down. It's kind of interesting because you think about like United Nations and all the dark stuff that they've done over the years, and the fact that they really do want global domination, yet right now they're playing this PR campaign like they're actually the ones that are on the good side of history, the right side, condemning Israel, playing all these theatrical things, walking out. Truth is, if they really wanted to do something about what Israel was doing, they could have. They could have sent actual military to back the flotilla to protect him. Imagine, they go in and the United Nations is there with peacekeeping mission ships following. They had plenty of different opportunities to really show their teeth instead of just, use their teeth rather than just show them. They're just barking with no bite. It's all theater, ladies and gentlemen. It's all theater. And I want you to understand that the entire intention is that they want you to think these two factions are not on the same team. No. It's a planned population drop and consolidation. Imagine that, let's just say private equity came by and bought your failing business, right? This happens all the time in America. You got a retail chain, right? And they're struggling to stay afloat. They file Chapter 7 or whatever. And then a private equity company comes in, kind of like what they did with a lot of these retirement homes. They liquidate it. But in the process of liquidating it and transferring all these assets and basically pillaging the entire company, they destroy the business, burn it to the ground, profit off its destruction. That's what's happened to the United States. That's what's happening right now. The whole Democrat versus Republican, the whole United Nations versus Israel, all of this, theater. They're playing with us. Peter Thiel is here to set the tone for what's about to happen, guys.
It is, as Newman did, where it's sort of the final dictator of the one world state, where it's still, you stress it more as a person. You think of it as a type, a system, a person. How does a sort of world takeover actually happen? And it's kind of not a deus ex machina, but like a daemonium ex machina. It's like the Antichrist just gives these hypnotic speeches where nobody can remember a word. And
do you see how excited he gets when he talks about it? Look at his face. He loves it. He's really feeling it. He's in the moment right now. Yeah, this is exactly what he's got planned for us. Him and his buddies.
then sort of just swindles people's souls out of them, and they submit to this totalitarian state or something like this.
This is Trump's buddy.
I think if we were to speculate on how to solve that plot hole, we have an answer in the world after 1945, that people are, in 1900, early 20th century, people were not yet scared of apocalyptic weapons. They could not imagine, anything of the scale that we'd have by the second half of the 20th century. And so the Antichrist takes over by talking about Armageddon.
The Antichrist takes over by talking about Armageddon. Now,
there it is.
In his interview with Peter Thiel.
Also, you'd be amazed if you looked into the occult rituals between NASA, Project Paperclip, all of this. The people that rule the world, they're all into occult ritual magic. They're all Luciferian. Peter Thiel is just here to debate who the Antichrist is or what it is. The irony is that he admits that the people that are likely to be or representative of it are going to get into power by talking about Armageddon, which is exactly, like I said, goes back to the red heifers and the Likud party and what's happening in Israel right now, and the fact that they've essentially captured America and they're riding it. And all of our politicians are all in and on it. It's beautiful. It's really poetic. All right. Well, guys, no chat. All right. Well.